to Paul Tighe, who's a senior engineer at the Office of Public Works, to talk about the power of cumulative action. And we'll be back at the end if there's any questions. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Alessandra. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks very much for taking your time to join us this afternoon for the first Reduce Your Use webinar for 2023. My name is Paul Tighe. I'm a senior engineer with the Office of Public Works and assisting my colleagues here in the SEAI on the Reduce Your Use initiative. The talk today is about the power of cumulative action, but before we get into that, there's a couple of housekeeping items to go through. So the event has been recorded. Attendees are muted with the cameras off. Questions can be submitted by clicking the QA bubble to the bottom right of your screens. Questions will be answered, time permitting, at the end of the webinar. Either way, recording and slides and answers to any questions raised will be distributed after the event. Okay, with that out of the way, we'll move on. I'm going to talk a little bit today and explain a little bit about what we mean about the power of cumulative action in the context of the Reduce Your Use initiative. I'll suggest some basic energy saving actions that can be taken very easily and are easy to implement, and then give some examples of how both work together to help us eliminate energy waste. So I'll start with a question really, how long does it take to become an expert? Well, researchers tell us that it takes about 5 years working full time. Now that's about 10,000 hours. Now, assuming your energy team or energy champion in your workplace can spend, say, 2 hours per week on energy conservation, that would mean it would take them upwards of 100 years to become an energy saving expert. So that's clearly an unrealistic goal. So energy teams need your help. Bearing in mind that your energy team leads tend not to work full time on energy conservation. Very often they take on these tasks along with their existing role in your organisation and would be lucky to get to spend 1 to 2 hours a week on energy conservation actions. So considering this, I'd ask you to consider your energy team not so much as being the energy team, but as being your energy team leaders, and to consider yourselves and your work colleagues as the actual energy team. And in this way, you can share the load and make the most of your valuable and limited time to try and maximise energy savings. So how will that work then? Well, individual small actions on a national scale can make a very big difference in this area. So for example, just spending 3 minutes a day being mindful of the energy we use in the workplace can work very well. That's a minute in the morning, a minute at lunchtime, and a minute in the evening before you head off home. Focusing on the basics like switching off lights and computers or portable and non-essential electrical equipment, closing doors, windows and blinds, and having a check on unoccupied rooms, particularly meeting rooms where lighting and air conditioning can be left on. And it's the sum of the parts that can make the difference here. When everybody takes part, and the majority of people in a building focus on energy awareness, even for a few minutes at key moments during the day, then the time spent on energy saving activities overall can increase radically. So in a small building, say with 20 occupants, for example, the time spent on energy awareness activity could be 6 times greater than that of an energy team acting alone. And in a bigger building of, say, 1,000 occupants, the time spent could be 30 times greater, even if only half of the staff participate. So in this way, a collective energy saving effort brings with it the necessary time, focus, and expertise to succeed. And the good news here is that you don't even have to be an expert. Just get to know the basics. Stick with what's realistic. Only take on what's realistically possible for you to do in terms of energy conservation, but do it consistently. Try and sustain your efforts and try and work together closely to challenge and save. Now, there's a short video going to be played now to just try and reinforce this concept a little bit. I'm going to hand over to Alessandra to run that for us. It's self-explanatory, but I'd ask you to imagine, if you will, the guys in the high-vis vests as being your energy team leads, and everybody else in the video being the energy team. Alessandra.
So back over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Alessandra. So there you go. That's self-explanatory, but a very powerful example, I think, of what ordinary people can do from all walks of life and what they can achieve by working together. Move on. This is a graphic of this week's Reduce Your Use poster. We came up with a list of energy-saving actions as the basis for this week's poster, and hopefully it will give you some ideas for taking energy-saving actions in 2023. Now, we know most of you participating in the Reduce Your Use initiative already save energy consistently, and we encourage you to continue your efforts this year. But perhaps the poster will give you some inspiration for some fresh ideas. So, for example, could you act on some of the basics at home, like reducing your energy use during the peak hours between 5 and 7 p.m, or fixing leaking taps, for example, or insulating attics, or replacing old fluorescent or halogen lighting for LEDs. Or at work, could you work on switching off lighting, computers and portable appliances, or closing doors and windows and blinds, or discussing possible energy-saving ideas at work with your colleagues? The idea being to challenge yourself and your colleagues to save energy. As an example, well, staff in 8 acute care hospitals in the HSE did exactly that during the big switch off. This was an initiative that focused on eliminating energy waste over holiday periods. And over the course of 2 bank holiday weekends, a lot of energy was saved. Enough energy, in fact, to run an operating theatre for over 162 days, or to make in excess of 1.4 million cups of tea, or to power and heat 2 typical Irish homes for a year. Another example is the Optimising Power at Work programme run by the Office of Public Works. This uses the power of cumulative action too, and relies heavily upon everyone doing the basics consistently. Small energy saving actions taken by a large group can result in significant savings. On this programme, there's over 300 buildings participating, and the programme's building portfolio consistently reports in excess of 20% savings year on year. The current year's reporting is 23%. So simple actions can make a big difference. How about, for example, fixing that hot water tap at home that's been leaking for the past year? Well, this could be the energy saving equivalent of over 500 washing machine cycles, or almost 3 years of standard TV viewing at home, or 2 return rail trips from Dublin to Cork. A very similar exercise was done on a much larger scale to tackle water leaks in the Irish Prison Service, and in 1 year alone, they saved enough water to fill 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That's a lot of water. Could you encourage 5 people in your workplace perhaps to print 15 fewer A4 sheets per week? In a year, then, this could save enough paper to lay a paper trail to the top of Carrauntoohil. So there's lots of ways to save energy, and we're asking you to consider how you could continue to reduce your use in 2023, particularly during these current winter months. And finally from me, please don't assume that your energy saving efforts are too small or insignificant to make a difference. Small actions done consistently by a large group can lead to substantial energy savings. The examples I've shown you prove that. So please support your building's energy team, and let's continue to work together to eliminate waste and reduce our use in 2023. That's all I have for you today. Thanks very much for joining and listening to the presentation. I'll hand you off to Alessandra again now. Cheers.
Okay, if anyone's got any questions, you can pop them in the Q&A box. If not, we'll call this to a close. I'm just looking at the box now and I can't see anyone in there at the moment. So I just ask you a question off the top of my head, Paul. So what's been your most successful kind of behavioural change campaign when you've run Optimising Power at Work? Has it been the big switch off, or what kind of things have really worked?
I think the big switch off, we ran that for 2 consecutive years. The pandemic sort of put a hole in it thereafter, but we started running that as an intensive campaign for focusing on holiday weekends in the health service. and we had great participation from acute care hospitals nationwide in that. And as you can see from the presentation, the energy savings were significant. I think Mullingar General Hospital saved over one of the campaigns over 13.5% in terms of energy over the 2 bank holiday weekends, and it was a very similar story the following year with our winners of that competition was Galway University Hospital, and it was a similar percentage.
There's a question here that's actually not directly relevant to the topic for today, which is what steps are government making to switch to renewable energy sources? And we can actually there are grants going on. If you look at the SEI website, you can see the grant scheme there for householders and for community groups and for owner management companies. And there's an awful lot of work going on to transition the electricity grid to renewable energy, so probably covers that one off. I think that's probably it in terms of questions. We've had some nice thanks here, so I'll thank you again, Paul, for doing this webinar for us, and
no problem.
We'll see you all again next week for our next webinar. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Yeah, bye-bye.